Hello, my name is Craig Wilson with the ZENworks support team. Today I'm doing a follow-up article that talks about the foreground lock timeout issues with Windows 11. As a quick reminder, starting with Windows 11, they no longer support setting the foreground lock timeout via the registry. They also changed the default foreground lock timeout from 10,000 to 2 million. As a result, it's very difficult for new Windows to take the foreground when launching, which is why many applications start behind ZAPP when processes are started from ZAPP. It also impacts things besides ZAPP. You're using whatever application and a dialog box or a prompt or a notification comes up and it's hidden behind 10, 15 windows. It's rather annoying. So what I have here is a solution that will help us set the foreground lock timeout back to the value we used in previous versions, which is 0. And how this works is it creates or uses a PowerShell script that starts an application that creates a window and sets itself to be the active window. Because being the active window is one of the requirements for using the APIs to change the foreground lock timeout. So unless your process is the active window, the API keys just don't work. Now, because the foreground lock timeout is 11 million, even when we try to activate ourselves, we often fail. So there's another trick that I learned. While I can't make myself active all the time, if I minimize the active window, it will actually force the next window in line to be active. So this process, it creates the window, it tries to activate itself, which puts it next in line, and then it will look for and close the active window, which activates itself. So now the APIs to set the foreground lock timeout work. It then closes itself and restores the window. In these bundles and solutions, I actually use the ZAPP window as the window to close to activate ourselves, since ZAPP is what we care about. So let me demonstrate just sort of the general issue again. So I'm going to run calculator, and it starts behind. And now I'm going to use this focus fix icon. And when I run it, what will happen is it'll create a window over here. And shortly after that appears, the ZAPP window will briefly minimize, which activates my window, which it can then use the API commands to set the foreground lock timeout. My window closes, and it restores ZAPP. So you'll see a window, ZAPP will blink, the window goes away. And now, calculator works as expected. And what I'm now going to do, I'm going to log out and sort of show you how this can all happen automatically when you sign into Windows. And this bundle actually has a couple options where it happens where ZAPP auto starts, and everything is automatic, or another option where ZAPP does not auto start, but it just sort of sits and waits for ZAPP to start, and when ZAPP starts, it does what it needs to do. So we will just sort of wait here because it's set to auto run. So the bundle is set to run at login, and it actually even calls ZAPP. And so we're just going to sit here and wait for ZAPP to start. Boop, ZAPP comes up. And it minimizes itself, restores itself with a little blink of the window over here. And I click on calculator, and presto changeo, it auto works. And I have some bundles here which set a few registry keys, which alters some system requirements and bundle actions so that ZAPP doesn't auto start. And then it'll just sort of sit in the background waiting for the user to sign on. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to log back in again. And while we're waiting and testing stuff, I'm just going to go into ZCC and look around. And so I have my bundles. Let's see down here. ZAPP Focus Fix. And so we go into the actions. There's just launch. And so the first action is this will check the current foreground lock timeout values, and then which controls whether things need to happen. And it actually sets those values in the registry so the other actions can check for them. And then the next thing it does is a launch executable, which starts ZAPP with the norm. And there is actually a registry key here, which is basically so long as the ZAPP norm value is not 0, it runs. And that's what the other bundle sets. It turns things on and off. So long as this key is not set, ZAPP will auto start. And then after ZAPP starts, we have a couple scripts here. So the first script, what it does is it checks the current values for the foreground lock timeout as well as ZAPP norm. So if ZAPP is not auto starting, this script's not going to run because it's probably not going to work. So, or if the foreground lock timeout is already 0, which we set in the first action, we're not going to do anything. And then this final action here, this is the one that sort of sits in the background. And again, it has the requirements for the foreground lock timeout to not be 0. So if things are not yet fixed, it's just going to sit there in the background and run, and the script's actually checking for the existence of the ZAPP window every couple seconds. There's not really much overhead there, and as soon as the ZAPP window appears, it's going to do its magic. And if you notice, that's how things are set now. So this script is just sitting in the background running, waiting for ZAPP. And so I'm going to go and start the ZAPP window. And then, boom, you saw it. It fixed itself. And calculator now runs correctly right away. And you don't have the ZAPP auto starting if you don't want. And then, so basically there's just 2 bundles. You can give them to users that it will help you configure whether or not these bundles auto start ZAPP or don't auto start ZAPP. And you can technically even just set nothing to auto run if you want. And you can just give your end users this button to fix things. So you just give them the ZAPP Focus Fix. And they can manually do it, so if you prefer nothing happening. And actually, that's about all I have to show you today. There will be a link to an article that goes into details about how these scripts actually work in more technical details. And hopefully, you found this exciting, because I know none of us like that black window, and now it's gone. Our lives are much better, and we don't have worried users. Thank you very much. Bye.